Okay, I know we've been riled up, and we definitely need the funds.
Everybody.
One moment, please.
They have the money, they have the organization, and if we're going to free the Move 9, if we're going to bring all our political prisoners home, and if we are going to mount a revolution in this country, we need money and we need organization. I just want to say that NPR on May 20th, 2015 covered the MoVE organization and the MoVE bombing, and the question raised by NPR was, why have so many people never heard of the MoVE bombing? And I think that we who are here, the people of conscience who know this story, have a responsibility at this particular moment to answer that question and to make sure that everyone in this city, that everyone in Philadelphia, everyone in this country, and everyone around the world knows the MoVE bombing. The reason why we do not know about the MoVE bombing is because with the MoVE bombing and with the treatment of the MoVE organization, we see a human rights atrocity in this nation of epic proportion. We did, or the government of this nation did, to the MoVE people what we do to the Palestinians, what we did to the Iraqis, what we did to the Afghanis. We bombed them, we disregarded their life, we disregarded their humanity. In this nation, we only do that. The government only does that in such horrific a way to black people who dare to resist and stand against what this system represents. I want to start out, I'm going to be talking about Janet, Janine, and Debbie today, and I want to talk about Janet, Janine, and Deb because we rarely hear about women political prisoners. I also think that as we read the story of the MoVE organization, because of all of the human rights atrocities behind them, we are empowered to fight. So I want to give you a sense of who these women are and why they joined the MoVE organization. Because if we're going to defend them, we need to know their stories, and we need to tell their stories from a mountaintop. This is what Janet Holloway, Africa, said about her politicization and why she joined the MoVE organization. A young woman, African American, this is what she says: I can't even put into words the feeling I got hearing John Africa's teachings. It gripped me in a way that I've never been gripped before. For the first time in my life, I felt there was hope for me, and there was reasons why I was so detached, so dissatisfied, and so unhappy. What we know is that MoVE was persecuted and continues to be persecuted because of its fierce, philosophical, political, and spiritual defense of life. That which the system of capitalism has absolutely no regard for. This system feared MoVE's defense of the water, an issue that is with us today and that we see in Flint, Michigan. And MoVE was talking about the water in the 1970s before talking about the water and the environment was trendy in American society. This system feared MoVE for its defense of the water, for its defense of the environment, for its defense of the earth, the food we eat, all issues that are very alive and well and part of public discourse today, which tells us that MoVE in the 1970s was ahead of its time. MoVE MoVE was feared because of its defense of the life source, which MoVE believes to be Mama. This Mama MoVE's believe is the purveyor of the life source, and for that MoVE was attacked. MoVE in the 1970s, at the end of that age of great dreams, was a symbol of resistance and a terrible black threat to the status quo. It was a threat that in the imagination of authority had to be silenced. I want to talk a little bit about Janet Africa, because we need to know the stories of these powerful MoVE women. On May 9th, 1974, Janet and fellow MoVE sister Leasing Africa were walking to the store. They were accosted by cops who quickly became abusive against these women. Both Janet and Leasing were pregnant. The police slammed Janet stomach first against a police car. Both their children, the child of Janet and Leasing, were killed by the police through miscarriage. They both lost their children that night as a result of an encounter with the police through miscarriage. Now I want to talk about Janine Phillips Africa, and about why she joined the MoVE organization. She said that at the age of 17, she was overwhelmed because she had a baby, and we know the experience of black poor women in this country with children. Janine was one of those young women at 17, and this is what she said, quote, "I didn't know how to be a mother or a wife, and trying to be both was driving me to a nervous breakdown. I developed a condition where my throat would close up on me, and I couldn't eat. I went from doctor to doctor, hospital to hospital, and none of them could do anything for me," unquote. She found love, refuge, righteous struggle, family, and collective childcare in the MoVE organization. And her condition, the fact that her throat had closed up and no one could tell her why, no doctor, was resolved because she found in MoVE community and an antidote to her alienation, a reason to struggle for black people, for all people, and for freedom in these United States and in the world. As the repression against MoVE was mounting in the 1970s, 10 police cars descended on the MoVE house and attacked 7 MoVE members who had just been released from prison. Janine stepped in to defend her valiant husband, the late Phil Africa, who was recently killed by the state. The cops threw Janine to the ground, even though she was carrying her 3-week-old daughter, Life Africa. She was carrying Life Africa in her arms. Life Africa was killed that day by the police. Immediately, the MoVE organization held a press conference the next day. Officials denied the killing of Life Africa because Life was born in the MoVE house and didn't have a birth certificate. So the MoVE organization strategically did what it has been doing for the last 40 years. It invited local politicians to their house, the MoVE house, the sanctity of that house and the sanctity of life, to view the body of Life Africa, and the media had to report on it. I want to now talk about Debbie Sims Africa. She tells a compelling story about the day the MoVE house was attacked and destroyed by the city of Philadelphia on August 18, 1978. And all of these atrocities are happening before the actual bombing of the MoVE house in 1985. This is what she says about that day that the MoVE house was under siege by the city of Philadelphia. She was in the house with her 23-month-old, and she was 8.5 weeks pregnant with Mike Africa, who's with us today. The pressure, she says, of the fire hoses used by the firemen to drown out the house was so fierce, I'm quoting her now, that it threw the 2x4 oak beams of the window across the room, slamming our big dogs up against the wall and literally tearing the house apart from the inside. Then a second wave of water came through another would-be window, and we were caught in a crossfire of water. When the cops started shooting, I closed my eyes and just held tight to my stomach and protectively shielded my baby. The smoke bombs and tear gas were choking us. All the while, the water level was rising. We found out later during our trial from one of the lawyers appointed to represent us that when a mixture of smoke and water are thrown together, it acts as a deadly weapon and could have suffocated all of us. I personally thought we were going to die. It was only a miracle that we didn't die. Within a year or so, she had Mike Africa in prison, naturally on her own, alone in prison. She held Mike Africa for 7 hours and then faced the inevitable that Mike, her son, would have to be taken from her. And this is what happens to women, and black women disproportionately in this nation, day in and day out, in a nation where the incarceration of black women is growing at 800%, the fastest growth in the nation. I think it's important for us to say that behind MoVE, there's a long history of repression against radicals and revolutionaries. But there's also a long history of survival, challenge to the system, and victory. Behind the MoVE organization, we see Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser, John Brown, Eugene Debs, the Haymarket Martyrs, Sacco and Vanzetti, Ethel and Julius Rosenberg, Angela Davis, Mike Africa, David Gilbert, Sekou Odinga, Mumia Abu-Jamal, Luis Rodriguez, Leonard Peltier, Sundiata Acoli, Phil Africa, Abdul Majid, Mumia Abu-Jamal. Did I mention Oscar Lopez, Bradley Manning? These are political prisoners, people who are responsible for civilizing American society. All of this tells us that we really stand on the shoulders of giants, and our responsibility, the moral assignment of our generation, is to bring our brothers and sisters home. And when Mumia comes home, the MoVE 9 will come home, and the whole apparatus of this system, its very logic, will come tumbling down. Free the MoVE 9, free the MoVE women, and onward to a completely different society.
Excellent.